Europe, once a symbol of unity and stability, is reaching a breaking point. Mass migration, failed integration, violent crime, and government betrayal combine into a perfect storm. From Belgium to the Netherlands, Spain to Sweden and the United Kingdom, tragedy fuels unrest. And when citizens feel abandoned by their leaders, the spark of civil war is never far away. Across the continent, case after case pushes public anger to the edge. In Zeebrugge, Belgium, a 56-year-old man is beaten to death outside a night shop. The suspects, Russian truck drivers, vanish into the darkness, leaving locals furious and fearful. 4 days later, they are arrested in Poland. In Amsterdam, 17-year-old Lisa calls police after being stalked on her bike. Before officers arrive, she is stabbed to death by a 22-year-old asylum seeker with a violent record. The murder sparks nationwide protests across the Netherlands, with citizens demanding justice. In Spain's Torre Pacheco, an elderly pensioner is assaulted by migrants. Within hours, riots erupt. For 3 nights, streets are engulfed by arson, looting, and violent clashes between locals and North African gangs. In Sweden, nightly explosions rock Stockholm, Malmö, and Gothenburg. Bombings and grenade attacks linked to migrant gangs turn entire neighborhoods into no-go zones, where even police and ambulances hesitate to enter. And in the United Kingdom, violence outside the Bell Hotel in Epping, Essex, used to house asylum seekers, revives national outrage. For many families, Britain's deeper betrayal remains the grooming gangs of Rotherham, Telford, and Rochdale, decades of abuse ignored by authorities too afraid to act. From Belgium to the Netherlands, from Spain to Sweden and across the UK, the pattern is the same. Crimes that should never have happened, authorities that failed to act, and if their governments will not protect them, who will? The unrest is not only about crime, it is about survival. Across Europe, the cost of living soars. In Belgium, a detached home now averages nearly 400,000 euros. In Brussels, families face prices of over $500,000 for a modest house. In the Netherlands, young couples wait close to a decade for access to social housing. And yet, migrants are placed in hotels, given food and clothing, all funded by taxpayers. For locals struggling with heating bills or rent, this feels like mockery. Energy costs rise, groceries climb faster than wages, and families slip into poverty. Meanwhile, newcomers are supported by subsidies and welfare with little contribution in return. In the justice system, the disparity deepens. Migrants accused of violence often walk free or face reduced sentences, while natives are punished harshly, even jailed for tweets, jokes, or political speech. The perception grows: natives pay, outsiders benefit. Natives are punished, outsiders protected. This is not merely economics, it is the spark of rebellion. The most dangerous collapse is not financial, it is trust. Across Europe, citizens watch as politicians ignore their pleas, courts release offenders, and police retreat from neighborhoods they no longer control. But what enrages people most is the silence. Mainstream media and political leaders refuse to name the problem for what it is. Reports of stabbings, bombings, and riots are softened with euphemisms: youth violence, social unrest, isolated incidents. Migrant origins are often omitted entirely. To native Europeans, this feels like betrayal. Their suffering is hidden, their fear dismissed. They see their daughters attacked, their neighborhoods transformed, yet officials insist it is cultural diversity. Online, the truth spreads faster than censors can stop it. Videos of assaults, riots, and explosions are shared millions of times. With every clip, trust in the establishment collapses further. People no longer believe their governments will defend them. They no longer believe the media will tell them the truth. When trust dies, loyalty to the state dies with it. In its place, new loyalties rise: tribes, communities, militias. Fear turns into resistance. Citizens who no longer trust their governments to protect them begin to protect themselves. In Antwerp and Rotterdam, residents form night watches to guard train stations and neighborhoods. In Madrid and Barcelona, locals barricade streets to keep out violent gangs. In Malmö, rival groups with firearms control entire blocks. And in Paris, whole banlieues slip further from state control, ruled instead by migrant gangs and criminal clans. In Germany, the anger explodes into mass protest. Tens of thousands march in Berlin, Munich, Cologne, and Leipzig, not in support of the government, but against it. German flags wave above the crowds, chants demand an end to asylum quotas and the deportation of violent offenders. Some rallies turn violent. In Munich, counter-protesters clash with right-wing demonstrators. Cars are torched, police injured, and the streets become battlegrounds. But the sheer size of the crowds reveals something deeper. Millions no longer believe the political establishment represents them. Protests evolve into patrols, and patrols into militias. Alarmed by the chaos, governments strike back. In France, the president declares a nationwide state of emergency. Curfews are imposed in Paris, Lyon, and Marseille. Soldiers guard metro stations, while riot police storm migrant-controlled suburbs. To many citizens, it feels less like protection and more like martial law. In Germany, the Bundestag authorizes expanded surveillance powers and longer detention for hate speech. Armored vehicles patrol Berlin and Cologne, officially to deter unrest. For ordinary Germans, the sight of tanks on city streets revives memories of a darker past. In Spain, riot police storm Torre Pacheco and other towns. Dozens of locals are arrested for throwing stones or burning cars. Yet the migrant gangs that sparked the violence slip away with little consequence, fueling more rage. In Britain, repression takes a different form. New online safety laws criminalize posts, jokes, even retweets. Activists like Tommy Robinson are jailed, and ordinary citizens risk prison for memes, while violent offenders walk free. In the Netherlands, commentators like Eva Vlaardingerbroek face bans and censorship. The European Union doubles down, enforcing strict hate speech regulations and funding new censorship programs. But censorship only drives opposition underground. Instead of restoring order, the crackdowns convince people the state is defending the system, not the people. Civil war begins not with a declaration, but with silence. The silence of police who no longer enter neighborhoods. The silence of governments too paralyzed to act. The silence before the first shot is fired. In Brussels, rival patrols harden into militias. At first, they wield bats and knives. Within weeks, smuggled rifles appear. Streets are barricaded with burning cars. Supermarkets are looted not out of greed, but survival. In Amsterdam, nationalist militias storm migrant shelters. Retaliation follows swiftly. Gangs torch shops and homes. The city fractures block by block, canal by canal, as order collapses. In Paris, the banlieues rise in open rebellion. Migrant gangs fortify their zones. The French military is ordered to retake them, but defections spread. Some soldiers refuse to fight their countrymen. Others join militias they believe protect their families. In London, chaos erupts as police units resign. Vigilantes clash with migrant gangs in South London, the Thames itself becoming a dividing line. North versus South, native versus migrant. Violence spirals. Bombings, assassinations, whispers of ethnic cleansing. Militaries fracture, some battalions loyal to governments in Brussels or Paris, others declaring themselves true defenders of Europe. Frontlines shift inside nations. Every city becomes a battlefield. Europe is at war with itself. As Western Europe burns, Eastern Europe fortifies. In Poland, thousands of troops are deployed to the borders. Razor wire is unrolled, concrete walls rise, and armed checkpoints stand at every crossing. Migrants and refugees fleeing the West are stopped, interrogated, and turned back. In Hungary, prime ministerial decrees grant emergency powers to border guards. Camps are established near the frontier, not for shelter, but for containment. Those permitted entry are placed under strict surveillance, separated from the population. In Slovakia and Czechia, entire highways are blocked with armored vehicles, preventing the flood of people escaping Germany and Austria. Trains from the West are halted, passengers forced to disembark and undergo screening. What was once the heart of the European Union fractures into two realities. In the West, lawlessness, militias, and famine. In the East, walls, order, and a fragile sense of security. The irony is undeniable. For years, Brussels condemned Eastern leaders as xenophobic for refusing migrant quotas. Yet now, their defiance makes them the only safe havens left. Refugees no longer come from Syria, Libya, or Afghanistan. They come from France, Belgium, Germany, and Britain. Behind their walls, Eastern leaders know survival depends on vigilance. If the chaos breaches their defenses, their order will not last long. By now, Europe is unrecognizable. The Schengen dream of open borders is dead. Frontiers sealed with razor wire and armed gates. The euro collapses. Food and fuel become currency. Supermarkets lie empty. Bakeries ration bread. Blackouts roll as power stations fail. Ports idle. Supply chains snap. Factories fall silent. Governments exist only on paper. Ministries are abandoned. Decrees ignored. Cities shrink into fortified districts. Roads fracture into checkpoints run by militias. Refugee columns push east toward Poland and Hungary along corridors that open and close without warning. Hospitals triage by lantern light while outbreaks spread untreated. The EU's multicultural utopia, limitless by design, has become its downfall. A continent once proud of peace and unity now lies shattered and divided. It began with murders and riots. It grew with inequality and silence. And it ended in civil war. Could it happen? Perhaps not. But history is clear. When governments fail to protect their people, collapse comes swiftly. This was Doomsday Broadcast. Subscribe and prepare for the unthinkable, because the end is always closer than it seems.